Well, people can watch it at home, so.
That's true. Very, very true. This is the beauty of technology now.
We don't have as many minorities here as we have at the school board being able to. I wish we could get some of them out here, but.
Well, like you said, hopefully they're just listening at home.
I found So, are you from?
All right. Is it on? Which one? This one? Okay.
Okay. I went to school with Sandy.
Okay. Good evening, and thank you for joining us for the Green Bay Area Public School Board Candidate Forum for the League of Women Voters, Greater Green Bay. My name is Dawn Smith. I am the Vice President of the League, and I am the Co-Chair of Voter Services. I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank all our candidates for coming. This is really fantastic having all of you. The League hosts these forums to give voters information so that you can make educated choices when you go to the polls. That's why we do this. Based on feedback we received last year from our mayoral forum, we have hired a videographer to do a live stream. So this will be streamed to our YouTube page, League of Women Voters, Greater Green Bay. If you go to live, when you get into the page, you'll see all 4 of our forums. We are having another forum on Sunday for 2 of the county board seats, and we are having Saturday at 12:30 for 2 of the county board seats, and then we are having a forum for Alloway Village trustees on Monday. There are 3 seats and 7 candidates, and all 7 candidates will be participating, and that will be at the Alloway Village Hall at 6 o'clock. I want to thank Jean Marsh, who is our moderator. And as you came in, you were given a QR code. Like I said, we have hired a videographer for all 4 of our forums this year, and we're hoping to do some more forums in fall. So if you are able and you appreciate having this opportunity to hear from your candidates, that QR code will take you to our PayPal page and you can make a donation. So good luck, candidates. And Jean, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Dawn, and welcome to our candidates for the Green Bay School Board, and thank you for taking time to attend this forum. First, a brief word about the League. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization encouraging the informed and active participation of citizens in government. It influences public policy through education and advocacy. The League never supports or opposes any political party or candidate. League members will review and send questions to me so that I can present them to the candidates. Similar questions will be consolidated so that we may address as many issues as possible. Questions that are addressed to only one candidate or candidates, or questions that state an opinion are not related to this elected office will not be asked. The timekeepers for the forum tonight are Jean and Don Dahlstrom. Prior to the start of the forum, the first person to speak was determined by a predetermined number, and I will alternate all subsequent questions between candidates so each candidate has the opportunity to respond first. Candidates will have equal time to share their perspective. The candidates for office are Andrew Becker, Alex Minot, Paul Boscher, and Ku Lee. The forum will run for 1.5 hours. We will have a 2-minute opening statement and we'll begin with Mr. Becker.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. It's great to be here, and it's great to be once again in person at one of these. I believe we were online the last time that I was running. And it's also great to see all 4 candidates here. I was sorry to see that not all of the offices across Brown County had all the candidates take advantage of the opportunities. I'm glad that all 4 of us are here today. I'm Andrew Becker. I'm running for re-election to the board. I have served on the board. I'm now in my 24th year. And I think it's important that as the only board member with more than 10 years of experience, I'm able to provide some important context and history, understanding both things that have gone very well in this district historically and also things that have not, so we don't repeat things that have not gone well. I'm very committed to listening to the community. I'm connected to this district. I started in, although I was born in De Pere, born in Green Bay, went to school in De Pere till 5th grade. I went to Annie Jackson and then Franklin and then West. Just like my grandmother had gone to West and just like my son Noah goes to West. Very proud to have been in the district and part of this district in different capacities for so long. I think I've been privileged to delve deeply into every aspect of the district and get a good understanding of the unique challenges and opportunities we encounter. And I look forward to informed decision making and listening to the community as we undergo some of these difficult decisions ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Minot?
Good evening, everyone. I will be reading from a prepared statement because I want to make sure that not just everybody that's here in front of us tonight, but everybody at home or who will watch us in the future can hear some key points. Thank you for having me. I am honored to be here, and I do not take lightly the significance of why we are here tonight. As a lifelong community member, father, coach, teacher, and friend to so many, the gravity of what goes on in our schools cannot be overstated. So much of what happens in our schools determines who we are and what we do in our lives. I've always tried to maximize what I know, what I have, to do the best that I can with whatever it is that I'm doing. In many cases, I've been far less advantaged than others, but I've also been in advantageous positions as well. I think everyone can relate to at least one of those. No matter what, the state of our school district is in need of some work, but I do love me some hard work. Things in need of hard work always seem to find me, but that doesn't scare me, not one bit. I know many are concerned about all of the issues our schools face right now, and you should be, but that's a good thing. It means you're paying attention, it means that you care, and hopefully it means that you're going to be involved in the future work ahead. Listen to me now. I care more than anyone up here tonight. This I promise you. Unlike some candidates, I was born and bred in Green Bay. I live here and I'm not leaving. I care more because, unlike others, I've been the teacher in your child's classroom. I care more because you are all my neighbors, my friends, and my community. My children, friends, and family attend our schools. I want you to know I'm not running for political office. I'm running because I'm bored, I'm not running because I'm bored or delusioned. I'm running for school board because I don't like running at all. I take things head on, I break them down, and I build them back up bigger, better than before. I'm seeking to be a key board member that can take our district into a better future for all. Every person, black, white, brown, rich, poor, young or old, or newly transplanted, will be at the forefront of my mind when I have the chance to guide us on a better path forward. I can promise you this, I will give you everything I got. The time is now.
Mr. Bosher?
My name is Paul Busher. I was born in Green Bay. I went to public schools for kindergarten and first grade, Alloway School and then Webster School. Alloway's no longer there. I went to St. Matthew's for 7 years. And then I went to Washington Junior High and East High. I participated in a lot of sports. I got 6 varsity letters. I went on to UW-Madison. I got my degree in sociology. I was an NCAA athlete, ran track, part of the Big Ten Conference. After college, I came back to Green Bay, and there really wasn't much here for college graduates. And part of the reason is that the way the city's set up, it's not really welcoming to people who went to college. There's not a lot of opportunities. So I'm trying to really help create opportunities for people. A lot of the students will be leaving after graduation. They'll be going off to the military or to college, and some of them might not come back. So I'd like to help people prepare for whatever their future is. And right now, the public schools just have a sort of a reputation of having a bad attitude. And my idea is that we improve the attitude through school spirit, which is through sports. Another part of my history is I worked at Georgetown University. I worked at Georgetown University Law Center. And so now I've basically been studying the sociology of Green Bay and trying to come up with solutions. And a lot of times I find out what the problems are. I talk about the solutions and people don't know what the problems were. So there's not enough time here to talk about all the problems and all the solutions. So I'm just going to be talking about solutions. And I'm running out of time, so thank you.
Mr. Lee?
First of all, thank you so much for the League of Women's Voter. This is a wonderful opportunity. My name is Ku Lee. I'm a candidate for the Green Bay Area Public School Board, seeking your vote starting March 9th all the way to Election Day, April 2nd. My background as a Hmong American refugee has instilled in me a deep appreciation for public schools and democracy that fuels my commitment to the children here in Green Bay. My personal journey from fleeing Laos during the Vietnam War with my parents to overcoming poverty and then cultural barriers here in America, I experienced firsthand the transformative power of education. Also, as the first in my family to graduate from a Big Ten university, I'm proof that what access to quality education can achieve. I'm also stand for a school district that is inclusive, equitable, and recognize the strength in our diversity, ensuring every child has the opportunity to excel. My vision for the Green Bay Area Public Schools, my leadership will focus on accountability, high academic expectation, safety, and aiming to empower all students to reach their full potential. And your support counts. By voting for me, you are supporting a vision for a school board that values diversity, champions education for all, and is committed to making a real difference. And I'm very proud to announce that I've been endorsed by the Greater Green Bay Labor Council and also the Green Bay Educated Association. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll start with the first question, and the panelists will have a minute and a half to respond to each question. We'll give our timekeeper a minute to reset. Okay. The first question will start with Mr. Minot. How do you believe that our schools in Wisconsin, or do you believe that our schools in Wisconsin are underfunded?
Yes, I do believe that our schools are underfunded. We have, in different ways, cut billions of dollars over the last decade plus in our state budget, and every time, our governor tries to kind of reclaim some of that money and to invest in our schools, it seems that opportunity is largely taken away. So ultimately, there's a lot more money that needs to be reinvested into our schools in a lot of different capacities. And I think the proof is the simple fact that for a decade now, every district around is continually going to referendum just to fund operations on a yearly basis, including major infrastructure projects that are required as things need to be rebuilt, after so many decades and so forth. So yeah, they're definitely underfunded, and I would, as a board member, I would do everything in my power to advocate for our school district, for public education, to receive more funding. But I would also add that it is incumbent upon us to make sure that we are properly utilizing that funding and doing a good job and a better job with our funding that we do get, because we know it is often very limited, and the public is watching, and we also only have so much money. So I would really make sure that I take all of those things into account.
Mr. Bosher?
Yeah, the schools are extremely underfunded. There's no better investment in education. There's been some type of freeze since I think about 1994 on the amount of money that you can spend on education, and Green Bay kind of got the worst of that because we were actually spending a low amount at the time. And but education needs to be about more than just, people are more than just brains. They need nutrition, they need exercise, they need a vision for the future. So we need to work to get diversity in the schools. We need to expand people's minds in other ways than just getting a good GPA. People are very focused on GPA and SAT scores, and that's what admission officers like because it fits their business model. And there's so much more to life than just GPA and business model and SATs and the business model that admissions officers want. So we need to spend a lot more money on education and get people diverse in ethnicity and diverse in state of mind.
Mr. Lee?
Thank you. That's a wonderful question. I think there's multiple factors that contributes to the issue that we have regards to funding. We could pinpoint it way back in 2011, Act 10, but I'm always in belief that we could do some things to help ourselves instead of complaining about what happened, finger pointing and so forth. One of the things that we could do, I think, is that we have to improve. As a board member, I will work with the rest of the boards to make sure that we have a consistency, a system where we could have the highest academic standards in the state. By improving that, we will definitely improve teacher retentions, we'll definitely improve student enrollments, and that will help and remedy the situation instead of pinpointing fingers, waiting for the state to do something for us. I think we can do something to help ourselves. And I think also back to Act 10, if there's any legislation out there that will reverse it, or at least make some modification to it, I will be the first to support it. Thank you.
Mr. Becker?
Thank you. With regards to funding, it's true that there's a lot of that funding piece that comes from the state that the district has little control over, other than to potentially do an operational referendum. And what we can do to keep taxes reasonable is to balance when we're bringing on referendums. We have had a good system over the years of having new referendums scheduled at the right times to keep a level tax rate that I think is very important. But I also want to point out, and this is something that from my experience I'm able to see, is that state funding sometimes is better some years than others, but the sky has never fallen. And the sky did not fall when we were facing this hypothetical $25–30 million shortfall and we were going to have to close a dozen schools. We're not in that boat anymore. We have fair maps that will get us a more balanced legislature, and at least a legislator that'll be forced to work across the aisle because the seats won't be essentially all predetermined. And I think there'll be more of that healthy give and take about school funding that's so important. And I look forward to doing that and doing the most we can with what we have.
Our next question, we'll start with Mr. Bosher. With schools consolidating, how will you support teachers and students whose classroom sizes are expanding?
Well, I think if the teachers can handle the classroom size, there's really no limit on class size. I know everybody likes the coziness of smaller classrooms, but I think that people just have to get over the idea of having large classrooms. When you go to college, you have classrooms that are bigger than this room. You have classes with hundreds, if not up to even 1,000 people in one classroom. So students and teachers need to learn to deal with these issues. I would like to support them more, like do what you can to reduce class size, but it's more efficient to have the larger classrooms in this situation. But we really need for the school district is to grow the school district, get more students. For some reason, the city itself has not been growing at the rate that the suburbs have. And while the other school districts are breaking at the seams with more students, for some reason people haven't been building as much in Green Bay over the last 20 years. So we need more students, more people, That'll really help the school district if we get more students, more funding. That's the most important thing that we could do to help the schools right now.
Mr. Lee?
The student-teacher ratio here in GB is actually lower than the state, and I think that's a wonderful thing. But sometimes we have to do what we need to do in order to keep or survive in the situations, any situation that we're given. And I think that as a member of the board, again, I will emphasize this, I will work with the other board members to make sure that we establish a structure where we support the superintendent, where the superintendent will have the resources available to him or her to support leadership at the school level. And I think that is important so that we could emphasize the support and the ability to build a relationship, an environment where we can trust each other, and there's some truth to that, and that so we could grow. And even at the situation where we have to consolidate schools, where we're expanding that student-teacher ratio, that because of the support that we have from leadership, that I think will be an easier transition as we move forward in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Becker?
Thank you. First of all, just to, this is my first time at one of these that anything about class size of 1,000 has ever been mentioned by anyone. Hard pass on a class size of 1,000. Hard pass. Actually, school consolidation doesn't have as much to do with making the classroom sizes bigger. That's a small piece of it. It's more about the fixed costs, the principal, the custodian, the secretary, the utilities that are divided out among a smaller number of students. I also think the biggest way to avoid that problem of increasing by too much consolidation is not to over-consolidate. I am proud to see that we did not undo the will of the voters in 2017 for the construction of John Dewey by cramming it into West, which would have been a horrible choice for both schools. We stopped that. I'm glad to see that we didn't move Da Vinci out of a building that was perfectly good and one of our newest remodeled buildings. I think we can take our time on this consolidation. Will we have to combine some schools? Yes, we'll have to combine some schools because some schools are too close to empty. But we can be smart and rational about how we do it, and always listening to the community and the process.
Mr. Minot?
I actually would agree with and second some of Andrew's last comments as far as I want to take the entire consolidation, reorganization process very slow. I also have faith with good work ahead that we would be in a position in the future not too distant where we can grow our enrollment again. I see a path where that changes, and so we do need to be cognizant of that. The major point I want to make is that it is a huge priority of mine to improve the classroom environment, the learning experience, what happens within the classroom, what the kids are doing. As a teacher of many, many years and many, many challenging situations, I know full well that it's not always important exactly how many are in there, whether it's 30 or 35 or wherever a cap might be. But it's more about how well do those kids work? How well do they respond? How are they operating? What do they have to work with? And what's their actual environment like in that classroom? And when people are all feeling good about what they're doing and doing good, the classroom environment tends to be a lot better. But most importantly, with that, I would involve teachers and make sure that we set up a different process where there's a little bit more say and a little bit more awareness of some of the things I just described. So that way, you can have a class of 20, but it can be much more challenging than a class of 35. And sometimes we don't account for some of those things, and we need to figure out how to do that a little bit better so all that stuff can be taken into consideration and improve everyone's learning experiences.
For our next question, we'll start with Mr. Lee. And the question is, what is your position on school vouchers? Are they good or bad?
First of all, I grew up in Detroit, and this is the two answers to this question here. when I grew up in Detroit, we live right in the center of the inner city of Detroit. Lots of resources is lacking. We don't have textbooks. We don't have doors on bathrooms. Sometimes we don't have toilet paper. Toilet doesn't work. And every year that we advance to the next grade, I remember us having to search closets, janitor's closets, teacher's closets, anywhere in the hall, locker rooms, so that we could actually find textbooks for us. And in that given situation, I think if my parents had the option at that time, that they could actually put me at a different school where they feel comfortable that I'm going to be in a situation where it's conducive to learning and growing as a youth. I think they would have done that. But now, switch the situation to Northeast Wisconsin. I think we're blessed to be up here. It's privileged to be here. So vouchers, I think again, we have to do some house cleaning. We have to do the things we necessarily have to do as a district to upkeep for that high expectation academic. I think if we actually achieve that, then a lot of things are going to happen positively for us. Thank you.
Mr. Becker?
Thank you. So one thing about vouchers, because I have people ask me about this that still don't know some of the ins and outs of how it works. I've had people tell me isn't a voucher just taking your whatever would have been your property taxes and you could use it to send your kid to a private school, and that's not how it works at all, obviously. That is money that comes out of the public school system. It's paid for by the taxpayers, and it goes to the way it's done in Wisconsin. It goes to unregulated or scarcely regulated organizations, or could be. We have our Catholic school system voluntarily follows many of the state rules, but there are corporate voucher schools that follow none of them. Once the money is taken, courtesy of the taxpayers, students can be, after the third Friday of the semester, can be expelled. And as long as it's after the third Friday, that district keeps that semester's worth of money. And then the kid comes to public school, and of course we educate the student. There is no fairness, there's no equitable rules in this system. Schools have closed and people have run off with the money in Wisconsin. In the last 20 years this has happened. So there is there's just no fairness and equity in the way that vouchers are done in Wisconsin. I'm not a supporter.
So put it simply, they're bad. It's just that simple. It's a new tool that families are using, but at best it's set up in a flawed way. And unfortunately, it hurts districts that are geographically positioned like Green Bay and Northeast Wisconsin, more so than a lot of other parts of the state. So it's in a sense doubly bad for us. But let me be clear. As a board member, we don't get to change state law. So as much as I want that changed, very much so, the fact of the matter is we need to do better in our own district with the things that we can control so that families don't want to leave in the first place. And there are a variety of things that we can control as a board and as a district that we can do better, and families won't be using vouchers, or they won't be using anywhere near as many. So I'm committing to, working on certain policies and systems changes, supporting our teachers and our families better, looking at how we can address some of our administrative deficiencies, and improving some of our facilities, our extracurricular programs, etc. Improving the classroom environment. You do a lot of those things, and a lot of the families that I know that are taking vouchers, they won't be doing that anymore. They're leaving and using an opportunity because of a lot of times bad experiences that happen too often, and we didn't do enough on our end to make it better. So that's what I'm committing to doing, is controlling what we can control and making things better.
Mr. Bosher?
If we have better schools, people won't be looking at other schools. So we need to focus on ourselves and improve what we have. One of the things that the teachers are complaining about is the special education. The public schools have to pay for that. And so what they could do is find out what percentage of the budget that is and take that off of each student's voucher, that whatever the percentage is, take off the voucher of people leaving so that other schools have to pay for special education just like the public schools. But the goal is to make the public schools better. If we make them, if we can improve the schools, we won't have to compete. We're much larger. We should be able to beat them at every level, whether it's education, athletics, convenience. But the voucher program had good intentions because there's some students that were getting left out, and now it's become a crutch for too many people.
The next question, we'll start with Mr. Becker, and it reads, could you please give your opinion of the Burns-Van Fleet report and also address the proposed flattening of the DOB administration and a timeline of when you imagine that it will occur?
Thank you. So the Burns-Van Vliet report that former Superintendent Dr. Claude Tiller Jr. Requested, it brought up important things. It brought up important things that I've known for a while in many cases, and I'm glad that we're talking about them now. I'm glad we're talking about culture, and I'm glad we're talking about climate, and I'm glad that we're talking about flattening DOB. There should not be 5 levels in between a principal and the superintendent. And I was happy to see on Monday the proposal to start to streamline some of these. I don't know the exact timeline because we need to see that organizational chart come out on Monday and review it. Certainly doesn't mean I'm going to automatically go along with the administration's recommendation, but I think it's a good starting point that there won't be the executive director layer will come off the table of education and teaching and learning. It is a step in the right direction, and I think we need to take very seriously that we have a report saying that people didn't feel welcome, and there was sometimes a climate of intimidation or a fear of retaliation, and I've consistently addressed that. I talked about it Monday, and I look forward to more discussions about it.
Ms. Minot?
It was honestly and somewhat sadly a beautiful x-ray and a very accurate one. And I say that with many years of experience working in the district up until very recently. And when I read that report, it was an exact reflection of my entire experience working in the district. The beauty of that, though, is now all of that information is there for everybody to see and dissect and understand, and it's not hidden. And I mean this as respectfully as I can, but if some people on the board have already known about some of these things, then why has it taken so long for this to get done, for something to change? I think that's a huge problem. I experienced almost all of what was in that report in various capacities, and that can't stand. That is what has been crippling our district, pushing people to use vouchers, pushing people to school choice out of our district, and dissatisfied with what's happening in the classrooms. I know as a parent, community member, and teacher that that has been the crux of a lot of our issues for a lot of years. And unfortunately, that is just reality. So that is a huge priority for me to address those issues because we are people and we work with people. Nothing is going to change in our district in a positive way if we don't take that report, put it on the agenda, work with everyone involved to make necessary changes to our personnel structure for now and many years to come. That has to be tops on our list if we want to see a better future, and I commit to that.
Mr. Bosher?
I think what it comes down to communication. Whether it's a student, a teacher, principal, they should all be able to communicate with people within the school district, whether it's the superintendent or the board. So whatever the school board decides, hopefully there'll be a system where communication is much better than what it is now.
Mr. Lee?
This is a very concerning topic, and you don't have to be in the system to feel and to understand the levels of difficulty for anyone, especially educators, to try to teach kids and for kids to learn. But in all that we do here, we are like the Green Bay Packers. We're looking for an elite quarterback to help us, and that is the superintendent. And as a board member, I will work with the rest of the boards to come up with a clear system, a structure in play where we have enough resources for this particular individual, he or she can establish an environment where we could rebuild, we could rekindle relationships through teachers' development programs, through engagement with students and parents, through clear expectations of what academics should be like. That is the key. We can talk all we want about the symptoms, but if we don't fix, if we don't provide the resources and the support from top down, it will never be resolved. And I think that is the key for this whole issue that we are facing, and to multiple issues that we're facing throughout the districts. Thank you.
The next question, we will start with Mr. Minot. What issues do you believe your district needs to address in its academic program and offerings? What changes would you recommend?
I think ultimately we need to address our quality. As someone who has taught many different subject areas across various grades, I had the experience of kind of curriculum fatigue. A lot of teachers upset with not being involved in the process of choosing our curriculum and the resources, and having differences of professional opinion on the likely success of some of those. And I see that across the board from various grade levels and various academic areas, from the people I've worked with and the people that I no longer work with but have had conversations with. I think that some of the work that has been started on closing achievement gaps and improving scores is a huge start. I will again address improving the classroom environment. When kids have ample physical education space and recess time, and they're fed well, and they have higher expectations, and the stress level is lower. It's amazing what your body and your brain can do when you're actually trying to learn, regardless of the curriculum. So what I would commit to, and what I know from experience, is that attacking student performance is something that has to be done from various perspectives, academic and non-academic, and that will have a huge impact on what kids can do. But ultimately, I want to make sure we hire good people and we support good people, including the teachers, to ultimately give their professional opinions.
Mr. Bosher?
Well, I would like to reduce the stress levels. There's teachers talking about stress levels, students talking about stress levels. If you reduce the stress levels, people can a much better environment to learn. So right now, our athletic facilities are based on people who are in the athletic programs. But if we could make our schools more like Planet Fitness or the YMCA, where people could work out whenever they want, before school, after school, or when they have a break period during school. So teachers will be less stressed if they work out. I had a job that was very stressful. I used to answer questions from law students, and they ask you a question, you give them an answer, and then they cross-examine you. And it's very stressful. But at the end of the day, I go play basketball. The next morning, I forget that my job was stressful. So if you work out, you can just wipe away that stress level. So I want to change the whole culture of school just being about your brain. It should be about your physical activity, and we should have a nutrition program for every student. This whole thing where we're collecting money from some people, and people have to prove that they're poor. It's ridiculous. Thank you.
Mr. Lee?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Certainly. What issues do you believe your district needs to address in its academic program and offerings? What changes would you recommend?
I think that the COVID pandemic has kind of taught me a valuable lesson. During that time, all of our kids are home, and I have a first-hand experience watching teachers training or teaching my kids, and I was amazed at the rate that my kids was learning, simply because I think teachers understand and know that parents are right there behind the screen, and they can sense it, they can feel it. For me in particular, I think we have to focus a little bit more on early childhood learning. We have to get the parents involved. I think in Green Bay, we are such a diverse community that many of these communities are being left behind, even though not, but they do feel like that. So our job as boards is that we have to connect the dots with our educators, our teachers, principal, administrators. We have to connect the dots with these communities, with these parents, get them involved so that we can build that foundation for early on. Also, we have to start kids early in middle school thinking about career fields so that we can actually focus on their education, where they need to be during high school with the different curriculums and so forth. Thank you.
Mr. Becker?
Thank you. Some of the I've always been an advocate for more more sincere and meaningful teacher voice on committees. I'll come back to that if I have a few seconds left. But in addition to that, I think some of the most learning I've done about curriculum has been working with retiring board member Nancy Welch, who's been in classrooms in the district for 40 plus years. And I've definitely learned from talking to her about the importance of a strong universal curriculum that students can participate in and have some overlap in the learning, especially with literacy, rather than so much individualization that the class doesn't get to come together around anything. There has to be better balance there. I think having a strong curriculum includes, and we've had teacher advisory committees around curriculum for many years, but just on Monday, our Chief Academic Officer, David Johns, proposed a new switch from committees to work teams. And you could say that that's just a word, but for right now, I believe in the sincerity of that teacher voice, including teacher voice that differs in opinion from administration, will matter. I wasn't able to push that through some of the other years, but I think we're finally there.
The next question will start with Mr. Bosher, and that is, do you support our teachers union, the GBEA, Green Bay Education Association?
Yes. You want me to elaborate? Well, you need a representative to do all the negotiating, and how else can you do it? Each teacher trying to negotiate their own contract, and unions are important in that you need representation. And it's the only way we can really do it right now. I mean, because everybody has a set interest and set goals, and I don't see another option. Thank you.
Mr. Lee?
Absolutely. I am endorsed by the Green Bay Educator Associations. Let me tell you about unions. You know, as a refugee to this country, my parents arrived without any prior training or educational background. And I think without the unions, my parents would not be able to work and support my siblings and I in Detroit working for the Big Three. So absolutely, unions is key, and I will always support the teachers union, yes.
Mr. Becker?
Thank you. I've been fortunate enough to be endorsed by the Green Bay Education Association in this election and in most of the last elections. I had one that was kind of uncontested, and then where two people ran for two seats. And there was one where we had maybe more differences of opinion, and that happens sometimes too. But fundamentally, what I think people need to know about the Green Bay Education Association is if people knew what was going on that allowed things to work smoothly. There's a reason that you don't hear about all these big city struggles about teachers on layoffs or teachers suspended, but they have to just go in a room and do paperwork in certain big cities where this happens for 2 years till their appeal is handled. There are so many times, I think, when the union and the district have been able to quietly work together. If things weren't going well for a teacher, maybe try another placement, and then maybe if a teacher's been in a couple of places, the union at times may have helped facilitate a conversation collaboratively about whether the person was on the career path where they would be most successful. And I think the fact that you don't see too many high priority issues of strife and controversial teacher firings. We're a big district, it will happen sometimes, but they're rare, and a strong GBEA is a big part of why that is pretty low here.
Mr. Minot?
Thank you. In general, yes, I do support the union. I was a longtime union member and building rep as a teacher in Green Bay. I would like to see the union work better for all teachers as well. I look forward to being a good teammate with the union and helping support and further some of their causes. But like most things you'll find with me, and the way I look at the world, the way I look at things, and the way I try to look at myself is about accountability. And we need to make sure that all of our kids and our families and all of our teachers and everyone in and out of this district is accountable for everything, and that we're all doing our best and all for the right reasons. And, and that goes for me, that goes for anyone in the district, in the union. And I think that, supporting the union is key. We have a very large union in our district, and I think that's a huge benefit for our teachers and for our families to have a collaborative group of teachers that are always, trying to make the entire school experience better. So I think it's a huge thing. It's a huge positive to be able to have that in our district, and I look forward to supporting the union in years to come.
The next question will start with Mr. Lee. How can you as a board member be accessible to the community and to specific community groups?
Absolutely. One of the things that I promise the residents here in Green Bay is that I will be very transparent. And some people tends to look at me and kind of put me in a category. But I'm here for the entire population, student here in Green Bay. I'm here for everybody, because I am concerned for the academic levels or achievements with our students here in GB. And that, disheartened me, because I felt that we can do so much better. I think that we have the foundation necessary to succeed, but we just have to tweak to make some decisions here, to build the system, to have a structure where we could provide these resources for our leaders, for our leaders in the schools to succeed. And I think that that's where I think the key is, and also the idea that we have to be so involved in different communities. And I think for us to be successful within this area, we have to be able to commit time and resources to go into these communities, to communicate with them. And for example, you have the Hmong communities. Why not use the teachers, the substance teachers, to play the kind of bridge between the two communities, so that we can help the kids succeed. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's all about kids succeeding academically.
Mr. Becker?
Thank you. I have always been a supporter of more public input at board meetings. I think currently we have an okay system of public speaking, but I think we could make it more public friendly. I would like to see the board more often have interaction with people, which you can't do about things that aren't on the agendas, but you legally can do about things that are on agendas. And I would like to see more room for that, especially during work sessions. I am not afraid, and I don't think it's a bad thing if when we had 30 plus speakers at a meeting. That's actually a good thing. When I was asked why I went to a rally about Dr. Tiller, I said, and I would say this about anything, anytime there's 150 people, 200 people rallying on a Saturday about anything related to education, I want to be where 150, 200 people are concerned about education. So I always want to hear more. I always want to have public involvement. I think we've done a good job of increasing the number of public advisory committees and improving the process through a policy I proposed to have there be an organized way to get members onto committees. And we have things like the Boundary Committee, the Clean Energy Committee, where we do have, I think we're going out to get more citizen input through committees, and also through the meeting structure, we can have more public input too.
Mr. Minot?
Can you please repeat the question?
Certainly. How can you as a board member be accessible to the community and to specific community groups?
I can be accessible by, there's a lot of different ways to do it. First and foremost, I have a very diverse background, and I'm connected to a lot of different people, and I stay connected. I'm constantly moving around the city, doing different things. I'm at the YMCA all the time. I see thousands of community members constantly. I'm still coaching in recreational sports and teaching, substitute teaching, and I have a small business that deals with people, and I'm just always out and about. And I think as a board member, that's a good start. But the point that I probably want to focus on the most is there's a lot of different ways to engage and interact with people, and I'm for just about all of them as far as I can think of. But I think the part that often gets missed is it's one thing just to listen to people or to get feedback from people, but are you actually going to take it in? Are you actually going to do something with it? Are you actually going to give it weight and value and use it? And that's something that, again, that I commit to. I commit to listening and connecting with all different types of people and truly hearing what they're saying and what they're asking for, and putting that to work as a board member, and not just giving them lip service. That will be a huge part of what I do if I'm on the board, is to constantly stay connected and engaged in what's going on with our schools. And fortunately, I currently and plan on continuing to have the time to invest my time being in all of those places so that can be done.
Mr. Bosher?
I have a history of talking to diverse communities. I got nothing but time. If people want to talk to me about anything, a lot of people recognize me from running for office, and they'll talk to me about all kinds of issues. And I'm always accessible, and I'm always willing to talk.
Okay, thank you. The next question will start with Mr. Becker, and that is, the school board represents the school district, so members need to be positive about our school, staff, and administration. What do you think our current staff and administration are doing well?
Thank you. Yeah, I am certainly stressing, as I have before, the theme of positive hands-on leadership, and I think we have a lot of great things going on in the district. And one thing that I think, well, it is our former superintendent, Dr. Tiller, who started. It is really something great that we're continuing, bringing central administration out into the buildings so they can be closer to what's going on. I think is great, and that's continuing with other levels of administration. I also think, although it's a small thing, but it's an important thing, showcasing student talent or performance at board meetings. It gives a sample to the community of the things that are going on across the district, and that's a positive highlight to start board meetings with. I think we have a greater range of programs than any districts around us could possibly have. I know of someone who went to another district to see their construction, hands-on construction training program, and then when the person found out, oh, wait, you're here from Green Bay? No, the example is the one that you have, the Bridges construction program. That's the shining example. We have so many opportunities for students across the district that the rest of the districts around us cannot touch.
Mr. Minot?
I think generally our admin in our district, our administrators do a pretty good job of trying to promote all of the things that are going on in our school district, and that's fantastic. I still think we can do a better job as a district as a whole in championing some of our successes. I mean, we have some great track teams that just competed at state, and I think we do an awesome job of having bulletins, of putting out certain things in various capacities about what's going on throughout our school district. But I think there's even room for improvement there. When a team does something, or a group does something that's not common across the entire state. That's a huge opportunity to take advantage of that and promote that to the rest of the community. And I think, for the teachers, I know as well as anyone what it's like to teach nowadays, and it's probably harder than it's ever been. And teachers are amazing, and I give so much credit to anyone who's teaching in our district right now, and I thank you very much. My kids have amazing teachers. I've worked with so many amazing teachers, and we have nothing if we don't have teachers and we don't support them. So I look forward to that opportunity to continue to support them in all the ways we have been, and in many more new ways that I have ideas for, because I think our teachers are put in some of the toughest situations in the state, and I think they're incredible, and I look forward to doing even more to help them be better at their job and to support them in every way.
Mr. Bosher?
We're doing a good job of preparing many of the kids for college. So there's a lot of intelligent kids. There's a lot of teachers teaching them. We could just do a little bit better job getting every kid ready for college. We need to educate an electorate. Right now, our community is too much. Rural majority is usually people who didn't go to college. And so we need to focus on making sure everyone is college ready. And the teachers can do that, but they haven't necessarily been given that mandate yet. So.
Mr. Lee?
First of all, I think teachers, mentors, coaches, the administrators, these people are wonderful people, and we have to recognize that. My experience is I'm a big numbers guy, and all I see is statistics. And what I see is that we have not prepared our kids for the challenges of the 21st century world. Right now, we are looking at 75% students from elementary to high school that is not proficient in math, reading, or science. I think that should cause an alarm. And I think ultimately, we can look at some of the positives and say, yay, let's celebrate that. Absolutely. But you got to remember, our job is to prepare our kids. Our kids is the future. And when we talk about national security, when we talk about brighter future, we have failed our kids. I meet people on the streets that graduate from GB high schools, and they don't know much. And that hurts my heart, because I think we could do better. That starts with the boards. We have to do a better job finding that superintendent. We have to find the individual no matter what. That individual has to be a wonderful instructional leader that provides that leadership and support to our administrators and teachers, allow them to be teachers, be creative, innovative, flexible, teach our kids. I think that is the only way to do this. Thank you.
Our next question will start with Mr. Minot, and that is, as schools close, some students will have to travel further to school. What ideas do you have to adjust or improve transportation for students?
Well, I would kindly and respectfully push back on the premise of that question, because right now, other than the one or two that have been voted on, maybe three, nothing's been guaranteed yet, nothing's set in stone, and I don't see a reason why that has to change necessarily. There's a lot of work left to be done, and a lot of information left to be found, and a lot of people's voices left to hear as far as whether we close certain schools, combine them, modify them, what we do with boundary lines. And if I'm on the board, one thing I look forward to is slowing down that process, if not halting it in certain capacities, because there are certain things that do not need to be changed yet until we figure out how all of the pieces fit together better, to reduce that time if and when those circumstances happen. Geographically, our city is unique in the way it's structured and where the populations are. So we do have a lot of things we have to look at. Where I live, my kids will likely end up going across the river for not only high school, potentially middle school. And I'm okay with that personally. But I think as I look at being someone who represents the whole community, I'm committed to really, truly analyzing not only those boundary lines, but also what we do with our school configurations to reduce that as much as possible. Because I know as a former activities director that there's not any more buses, any more bus drivers likely coming down the pipeline, so we are limited in those options. So I think it starts before that.
Mr. Bosher?
Well, a lot of parents have been talking about students who have issues after school when they want to stay after school for whatever project or for sports. they have a difficulty getting home. They don't necessarily have transportation, so we could work on like a shuttle bus system for those who stay after school. As far as when you move schools around, bridges over bigger highways, or like at East Mason at the East River, it's very hard for kids to get across there. So if we could elevate that road and put a tunnel underneath, it would be very helpful to perhaps even save people's lives. But students can walk a little bit. I mean, kids live 3 blocks from school and they're getting rides, so it doesn't hurt them to walk a little bit.
Mr. Lee?
At the moment, I don't have all the information regards to these changes, but I would say that I will be in support of the best ideas, how we're going to put this together so it's convenient for all the parents involved, all the students involved. So at this point in time, I don't have all the data to give any kind of appropriate answer, but I am in support of the best ideas to make sure that we're engaged with students and parents.
Mr. Becker?
Thank you. So it would just so everyone knows, it would be very, very uncommon for someone 3 blocks away to get a ride. There could be certainly students with disabilities. Head Start has some universal busing for the really little kids. But I think that we do have to consider transportation when we're looking at consolidating schools, because by necessity, more students will be bused when you consolidate. Now that impacts your savings, and you have to look at that. That impacts accessibility to activities, and while I wish I had a magic answer about where all the additional bus drivers will come from, they're hard enough to find already. I'm committed to the district doing what it needs to do to have the best and safest bus drivers to if we have to expand the number. But I do think we need to be smart about if we have a school that's on the bubble as far as closing or not, we have to really look hard at the transportation costs and the availability of transportation to be able to make that decision correctly.
The next question, we will start with Mr. Bosher, and it is, what is the role of schools in teaching such topics as sex education, cyberbullying, AIDS, wellness, and bullying?
Ooh, a lot there. If they can understand how these issues affect the community, just from a broad perspective, rather than necessarily teaching details of all the issues, how it affects the community when there's misunderstandings. That's really a broad subject. I don't even know if I want to touch it, but they need people need to have information and know about what's going on in the community, how it affects them, and how they can address the issues. So to address those issues from a broad sense, rather than going into details, is how I would approach it.
Okay. Mr. Lee?
Can you repeat the question again, please?
Sure. What is the role of schools in teaching children about topics such as sex education, cyberbullying, AIDS, wellness, and bullying?
Those are some of the most important and critical questions that as a district we have to answer to. Ultimately, I believe in creating a very safe environment, and school should be the safest place. When it comes to the roles of schools, I think we have to relay that to experts on how we should delegate that or provide that to the teachers and educators at the school levels. For instance, if we're talking about sex topics, whether or not the little kids is ready for that, or should we wait until high school? Bullying, I think that is a very, very important things that we have to do as a district, that we have to provide an environment that is safe for all. And, you know, in the perfect world, we all would respect each other. We all would be kind to each other, show our best, and never let these things happen. But unfortunately, things do happen. People come from different backgrounds and different beliefs, And as educator, as boards, we have to have a structure where we support the leadership, where they will provide the resources necessary for the teachers and leadership at the school level in order to deter or to minimize some of these things from happening. And I think ultimately that's what my beliefs are.
Mr. Becker?
I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to repeat the question again, because
Sure.
there's just a lot of parts in there, and I still think I'm missing one of them.
Okay, what is the role of schools in teaching children about topics such as sex education, cyberbullying, AIDS, wellness, and bullying?
Okay. So I think we have curriculum, the human growth and development curriculum, and we have procedures there if parents want to make a different choice about that piece of the educational process. There's certain opt-outs and things that can happen. Bullying is very important. For many years, and hopefully soon again, I was the adult director of a student leadership retreat called Operation Snowball, where we would get together for a weekend and have a mix of kids from all different backgrounds talk about these issues. And I think when you do things like that, you get kids knowing that there's maybe much more in common between us than there is that divides us, and those opportunities can be very helpful. I think wellness is certainly important. I think we've gotten better over the years at teaching the importance of general wellness. And I also think we need to be a place where our students need to be safe, and we need to be absolutely a place where hate and bullying is not acceptable here.
Mr. Minot?
I think this question must be from a health teacher like myself. I think most of that relates to health curriculum in some part. Andrew did a good job of kind of laying out how some of that stuff naturally works itself out and some of the processes involved. But truth be told, the question is, what is the role of schools in teaching these things? So I think it's important that things like sex ed, cyberbullying, bullying, AIDS, wellness are taught in different capacities. Again, that's pretty much all health curriculum stuff. But I think what that question's getting, the heart of that is parents want to be sometimes more aware or more involved, or at least communicated with as far as some specifics in some of those things. I'll take this a little bit different direction and say that, in regards to some of these things, I think that with the focus on being better people, better kids, better people, and better to others, that's going to improve a lot of the concerns that people do have with some of those topics as far as how they play out in kids and teachers' lives daily in the classroom and in the schools. One thing that I want everybody to know is that there's certain policies that aren't terribly old that we have put in place in our district in the last 6 to 13 years that I think have helped contribute to some things that parents and teachers and kids aren't happy with, like bullying. So I'm referring to certain policies like maybe MLSS and PBIS, and those are things I know a lot of parents, teachers, and community members would like to see changed or let go. And I commit to evaluating those and making better decisions on what we can do to help address all of those things.
Okay. The next question, we'll start with Mr. Lee, and that is, how does a school board balance the need to provide quality education with the need to respond to the local taxpayers' burden?
That is a hard question. Part of the role of a board is to engage, to listen to the communities, the different communities, engage with the educators, and come up with the best possible solution to help the schools, to help the leadership, to help students, to help parents, so that we could connect the dots. I know that, in our particular district here, we have different people, different communities, and every one of these people, even though we have different backgrounds, if you are to connect with any one of these individuals, everybody has the same goal. That is to make sure that their kids become the best students so that they have a chance for a future of to go on to college, or if not college, to access a trade program where they could be trained and could have a better future than their parents. So I think that we have that responsibility. We owe to ourselves to make sure that the money that taxpayers, pay to our education system, that we provide the best opportunity for their kids, for their growth, for a better future.
Mr. Becker?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. How does a school board balance the need to provide quality education with the need to respond to the local taxpayers' burden?
So the most important thing we can do is to be reasonable with referendums, and I think we have done that. In my time on the board, we have increased dramatically the amount of money that went into operating expenses out of the budget to at least curtail some of the need for as many referendum projects. And by making sure that we have reasonable referendums that pass as other referendum debt drops off, that keeps the level tax rate, which is very important. We've had a very close to level tax rate through this time that I've been on the board since 2012. The rate's been very close to level. Yes, there will be some increases over time as property values go up, as cost of living goes up. There's no secret that we have to continue to pay teachers well and be a very attractive school district for people to go to. At the same time, again, most of those, the final decision about the actual budget dollars, other than referenda, that's mostly set for you by the state. And people need to understand that districts, not only can districts not go above the number without a referendum, they can't really go below the number because they're penalized as well. So that option isn't there.
Mr. Minot?
I might make as many friends as enemies when I talk about this, but the reality is, again, we need to control what we can control. And ultimately, I think we need to be smarter with our money at times. There are enough positions that have been added, especially at the administrative and district office building over the last decade. We added a lot under the previous regime, and I was in the district during all of that time, and quite frankly, it didn't really net much of an improvement in the educational experience or environment of our kids and our families. So I say that and I highlight that to say that there are opportunities to appease a lot of the public who is aware of these things and wants to see some of these changes, and I will probably support them because there are a number of different positions and roles that we have added that, quite frankly, a lot of other school districts don't have, that don't net a positive gain for our students educationally or socially. So we need to take a hard look at those things and make some changes. I think the time has passed for those changes. We're looking at roughly a $2 million shortfall, and that's we don't need to close as many schools and so on if we can save a couple $1 million right there. So there's a lot of work to be done on that end, and I commit to looking at that and making some tough decisions, but they're the right decisions. Because if it's not positively impacting our kids' learning experiences, then it's not something that we need. I guess I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Bosher?
Well, investing in education, like if you build buildings, you're hiring construction workers, you're hiring suppliers, you're hiring real estate people. You're creating jobs. When you hire teachers, if you do it efficiently, you're creating jobs. When people have a job, they have money in their pocket, they have credit, crime rate goes down. So investing and growing is very important. So as long as you're creating jobs, you're helping everybody. And people are like, well, it's money out of my pocket. Yeah, but it's for you. Maybe you get a job from it. Maybe your neighbor, maybe your relatives. Somebody is benefiting, and the best investment, is best investing in ourselves, whether it's education or community structures. We really need to invest in ourselves.
The next question, we will start with Mr. Becker, and that is, please name 3 strengths that will make you an effective board member.
Thank you. I would say first would be my experience and history in the district. I think it's very important to have some voices on the board who know what's worked well and what hasn't worked well over the years. So we are finding the right new things to do, and we're not repeating mistakes of the past. Second would be my belief in listening and accessibility to the public. I think bringing more ways for public input to be involved in the process is important and it's critical. And I think the third thing I bring is my independent leadership. I think it's very important to have board members who will listen to everything that's brought to them, and that includes listening to the administration, but that does not include for me a presumption that my vote will be with the administration every time. I think my voting record has shown that I've been independent. I have valued the input of administration and also taken into account interests of the community, and sometimes those are different. That's been reflected in my vote. And I'm certainly not afraid to take votes that differ from the majority sometimes.
Mr. Minot?
Thank you. I think first of all, a huge aspect of me that some know and some may not is my diversity. I come from a very challenged upbringing, family who struggled with homelessness and addiction and drug abuse, and long story short, I found a way to make it out of there and to become a pretty successful person. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. A lot of our community members know what that life is like. A lot of our kids do these days. And to further diversity, I'm connected to a lot of different people in all walks of life of our district. Not because of that background, not only, but also because, as someone who teaches Spanish and has, black and brown friends and family across the area, and all the different ways that I'm connected throughout, I'm here to represent every person in our entire Green Bay School District community. Secondly, despite my ability to pinpoint and sometimes, if any, for want to analyze what may be wrong with things, I am an eternal optimist. I always think that there's a path forward, that there's a way that we can figure out how to make things work, and I can see a future where things are better, and that's just how I look at things. And lastly, I think compared to most people, you'll find that I have a great ability to be a great team member. I have endless energy, and I also have a certain amount of grit that most people don't have, and I think those are key things that are required in order to tackle some of the big issues we have.
Mr. Bosher?
Well, I think intelligence and the understanding of the society we live in, openness to listen to different perspectives, and then a vision for the future, which also the importance of brevity. Thank you.
Mr. Lee?
Well, I'll bring a fresh perspective to the boards. I obviously bring inclusion, equity, and diversity to the boards. And I have been known to be a tough leader, but very fair. And I have always been planting flowers no matter where I go. And I think that is refreshing. And, I've been on both sides, corporate America, and also owning my own business. Also, the idea that I live in different parts of the world, my life experience that I will be bringing with me to the boards. And I think that will be valuable. Thank you.
Thank you. That ends our questions for this evening, and we will now begin the closing statements that will be 2 minutes for each board candidate. We'll start reverse with Mr. Lee. Your 2-minute closing, please.
Well, first of all, thank you again for for hosting us tonight, and it has been a wonderful 1.5 hour. The panels up here are awesome. I think any one of us would do the job well, but I think in this time, this period, and what we are against right now in Green Bay, my experience, my life experience, my business experience, what I went through as a child, as a person who had to overcome many things to get to where I am today. The challenges of different cultures, learning a whole new language, adapting to this beautiful culture, and they never give up attitude, keep working hard, and finally, I think I am living the American dream. So your vote will not be wasted. I think what I bring to the board will be something fresh, refreshing, and I think that we need more voices from different communities, different people, in order for us to be able to put Green Bay, the schools together. And ultimately, this is for our kids, our future, and this cannot be taken lightly.
Thank you. Mr. Bosher?
This is for our kids, and I understand the importance of setting up the future. I know when I was in school, alcohol was very prevalent in schools, and when they got alcohol out of schools, it really helped education. We could probably do some other things like increase the marriage age so that students don't have to worry about marriage at 18. When their friends are getting married, they can focus on setting up their future. Things like getting the voting age in municipal level at 16 so people can start voting and having influence on their future. People don't vote until they're 18, 19, 20 sometimes. I know that the school board doesn't really work with that very much, but just getting the voice out there and changing people's attitudes and realizing what we can do if we just put our minds to it. And the children will be the ones who see the fruition of all these ideas. Let's see, we want to set up the future through education, through athletics, through nutrition, and get rid of depression through giving people a vision. When I was in school, if you were depressed, you just go buy a new album, and that would because there's a soundtrack in your mind, and buying a new album would change the soundtrack of your life. So we need to change the soundtrack, maybe put music in the hallways or on the buses, change the attitude. The attitude has really been lacking in the public schools, and that's why the voucher program was invented. So we need to focus on ourselves, do like Michael Jackson said, look at the man in the mirror, change your ways, and you can change the world.
Thank you. Mr. Minot?
Thank you for having me tonight. I appreciate being here. Quite simply, the time is now. It's time for change. It's time for improvement. It's time for competence. It's time for real leadership and engagement. The time is now to take hold of the current situation. It's time to honor the past, but also brave a new path for a better future. You can't sit back idly just hoping everything will work out. The time is now to show initiative, to be collaborative and creative, smart and responsible, to be future-oriented and not be afraid. Now is the time to bridge our gaps and rebuild a better school system. It's time for a restart. The time is now to use our money wisely and to be conscious of wasting what we have. We can't afford to waste our people or our resources anymore. It's time to control what we can control. The time is now to support our staff and to empower them as the great professionals that they are. The time is now to support our kids and families so that they have what they need and can achieve more. The time is now to have accountability at all levels. In our homes, in our classrooms, in our offices, and on our board. We want to look back at some point in the future. We want to say that today is when things started to turn around, that now is when we changed our trajectory. We'll vote Alex Minnow. The time is now. Thank you.
Mr. Becker?
Thank you. Thank you again to my fellow candidates and to the league for hosting. I'm for sure gonna come in second because with taglines because positive hands-on leadership, which I think is really good. It just doesn't have the snap and ring of the time is now. And I don't disagree. I don't disagree with Mr. Minot that the time is now, and I think experienced leadership needs to be a part of what's on the board for that as well. We are facing important challenges. We're facing the hiring of a new superintendent. I think it was the correct decision to have Vicki Beyer serve as our interim superintendent again to give us enough time to do that search right. And I think it's very important to take all the community voices into account. And I think that things might have gone in a different direction if we had done something differently in 2019. Dr. Claude Tiller Jr. was not even the first time I had proudly voted for an African American superintendent candidate. I do want to address, Mr. Minot had mentioned what, if I was on the board for so long, knowing about these things, what happened. Sometimes things took time to happen, and sometimes changes didn't happen because maybe the votes weren't there. But I think that we're in a position now. We see entirely new leadership in human resources under the direction of Mike Freeze, who's one of the brightest minds in the school district. I think we have made changes with things that were in that report. We can do less closing of schools and still save money, and I think we need to look at doing that smart. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to close this forum by thanking our candidates, Andrew Becker, Paul Bosher, Cooley, and Alex Minou, for participating in this democratic process by sharing their positions and their perspectives with us. And to our audience, thank you for attending this forum and for submitting your thoughtful questions. I'd like to extend our appreciation to League Vice President Dawn Smith for coordinating this forum, and League members, our timekeepers, Don and Jean Dahlstrom. Thank you to Christine Lemeron, Lynn Meschke, Denise Gummer-Hutchinson, Margaret Krings, and Aaron Marsh for assisting with this forum this evening. As a reminder, there is a recording of this forum that will be available on the League of Women Voters Greater Green Bay Facebook page. Please remember to vote in person or absentee by Tuesday, April 2nd. This ends the school board forum brought to you by the League of Women Voters of Greater Green Bay. Have a great evening and safe travels home. Let's give our candidates applause.